No, it started.
Great. Welcome everyone to What Family Means to Me, an adaptable meaning-making healthcare team activity. My name is Shoshana Helfenbaum, and I have with me today my two co-hosts, Daniel Galessiere and Dr. Cathy Smith. Today is November 5th, and this is session C9. So now we can begin. Okay, so I would like to take a moment and have the other people in the room introduce themselves very briefly, because we're going to have 2 or 3 opportunities to get to know one another a little bit better. So could we just start with your name and where you are? And I'm going to say who to do that, because first of all, let's start with our co-host Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Galessiere. I am an interprofessional educator working out of the Ontario Centres for Learning, Research and Innovation in Long-Term Care here in Toronto, Canada.
Go ahead, Cathy.
Hi, I'm Cathy Smith, and I'm an interprofessional and simulation educator at Baycrest, and also do a lot of work with the CLRI. And I just want to say my background is in the humanities, particularly theater and drama. And that background, I think, is really shaped and helped me to evolve my approach towards working within relationship-centered practice. And I'm really excited to be here presenting and to learn from you today.
Okay, how about Raquel?
Hi, I am Raquel Meyer. I'm a nurse by background, and I am an educator, a manager of educators at Baycrest Health Sciences in Toronto, Canada.
Okay, Christina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Gallucci, and I'm a project coordinator on 2 teams at Baycrest in Toronto, Canada. I work for the Kuhn-Lunenfeld Applied Center for Research and Evaluation, otherwise known as KLCare. And I also do work with the Ontario CLRI, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and sir, if you would please introduce yourself. Your screen reads MD and then a name. How do you want to be referred to?
Hi everyone. I am Fahimuddin. Muhammad Fahimuddin is it?
Muhammad. Okay.
MD Muhammad. It's Muhammad Fahimuddin, and I'm a Delhi government school teacher.
Wonderful. What level do you teach at?
I'm teaching humanities.
You're teaching humanities to post to
Yes.
people who are in university or in high school?
In high school.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to go through a brief presentation using slides so that we can really make sure that you have a strong background to move ahead and use this practice in your own setting. But we won't be on the slides forever, just a few minutes, and then we're going to get going experiencing the activity. So Daniel's going to introduce our organization.
So Mohammed, very quickly, just a little background to the Ontario CLRI. Where basically there's 3 host organizations that are located throughout the province of Ontario that comprise the Ontario Centres for Learning, Research and Innovation in Long-Term Care. And each role is located in a different part of the province. One located at Baycrest in Toronto, one in Briere in Ottawa, Ontario, and one in Waterloo, Ontario at the RIA. The next slide will speak a little bit more towards what we do. So the mandate for the Ontario CLRI is to strengthen the quality of life and care for particularly the long-term care sector that we work here, Mohammed. So we try to do that across the entire province that we work. And we do it by providing education like yourself and training, by sharing research and various innovations, and also identifying and developing resources ourselves for long-term care homes. And our strategic goals, the way we try to focus in doing this is to create capacity for all those who are working in long-term care to have a better quality of life, as well as using learning and innovation and the partnerships that we build to create that capacity in our sector. And obviously, it's very important to us that we incorporate the values of equity and diversity into that, as well as collaboration and sustainable changes so that we can really see a difference in our sector. And we try to imbue that into everything that we do. Finally, we just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge that our government also partially sponsors the work that we do here at the Ontario CLRI. So now that's a quick overview of our organization. I'd like to pass it back to Shoshana to talk about our focus for today.
Okay, so we would like to tell you our story. We began our story with a request from our government to address a situation of having many family complaints in the system of nursing care for the elderly living in long-term care within our province. And we were asked in particular to help engage families in care, meaning bring them toward participating with teams to make care decisions together and do all sorts of collaborative activities as part of the healthcare team. However, we created the practice that we're going to be going into today because in looking at what we needed to do in that type of education, we saw that there were two conflicting priorities depending on who we asked. Leadership were asking us to bring families into care, and staff were asking for help with handling their feelings of discomfort bringing families into care. So there was a request to bring them close and a request to keep them at a distance. So how are we going to overcome that separation? So what did we do? We developed some different resources and tools to promote competencies like behaviors, skills, values, and attitudes on teams that could support strong relationships, including relationships between families and staff, as a foundation for engaging families in a collaborative care relationship. And it eventually took the form of day-long workshops with 20 to 30 learners, 2 to 3 educators, and relational learning activities, including simulation, which is when people have the opportunity to rehearse something that represents real life situations in a safe learning environment, role-playing, applied theater, large and small group discussions, and different types of opportunities for individual and team reflection. The people who eventually came to these in-person sessions before COVID made it impossible included 500 learners from approximately 20 long-term care homes and geriatric organizations, and interprofessional team members, meaning people from different backgrounds and healthcare disciplines, 80% of whom were support workers, otherwise known as healthcare aides, people who assisted nurses and other professions to carry out care practice, as well as ourselves as educators. So I'm going to hand it back to my team to tell you the specifics about our activity.
So Mohammed, today we're going to focus in on an activity that we call What Family Means to Me. And we're going to showcase it as a meaning-making activity. So what do we mean by meaning-making? There's a woman named Dawn Dole who is an expert in relational education methods. They describe meaning-making as being able to achieve meaning-making when learners and teachers together make sense of a current situation by drawing on their previous knowledge and experience and engaging in social methods such as dialogue or conversation and understanding with others, learners, to create a new knowledge and a new understanding. That's the meaning making we're looking at. And the facilitator in that situation would also guide this process. So the What Family Means to Me activity that we're going to do today was created to enhance that receptivity to practice change, that engagement to want to change practice by creating conversation around meaning. In this particular situation for us, because we were introducing it in a module about engaging families in care, we wanted the conversation to be around the meaning of the word family and to expand the frame of what family meant beyond just customers that needed to be serviced, and actually include them as partners or co-creators in the care that we offer.
So what did we find when we took a look at how our exercise and the other things we did in the day were influencing team practice? And this is something that may very well apply to anyone who uses this kind of activity in a group, is increased receptivity to one another, increased inclusion of one another, increased reflection and reflecting together as a group, more exploration of new possibilities and how people can work together, increased well-being of the people in the group, and increased connection to one another. Now a word on applied theater.
Well, applied theater is looking at games and exercises that, as the slide says, uncovers and explores those competencies or those skills that we want to see related to practice. So it was actually a methodology that was originally designed by a theater practitioner named Augusto Boll, who actually worked to give his motivation was to give voice to the oppressed groups of people and to build community. We adapted the use of these applied theater games and exercises in our practice so that we could uncover and explore interprofessional competencies, those skills that we wanted the interprofessional team to have, as developing them in a relational and a collaborative way as a team. It involved facilitating experiential learning and embodied learning, really hands-on and reflective learning. And then we would actually reflect to apply. We would reflect on the experience so that we could transfer it into a skill that's applicable in the clinical setting. So we found that this was really an effective vehicle for engaging learners about concepts related to practice that required, thinking and consideration about it and reflection on it, and reflecting on it from multiple sources of knowledge so that they can get a really robust understanding from it. And I will happily say at this point, well, one of the things that we did was we used theater games and exercises to uncover and explore. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I think we're on to the next slide, no? Oh, no, forgive me. So some of the things that we did for this is we drew on certain techniques, Mohammed, that were drawn out of a simulation-based education. To start off, when we started anything that was based on theater-based education, we wanted to make sure that the environment was psychologically safe. And we also wanted to follow a specific framework where we would brief and then debrief the simulation. And also in the debriefing, we wanted to apply the experience and transfer what we've learned there into the practice setting. Cathy, I'd love to pass it on to you.
Well, the next part of this session is going to be in 3 parts. The first part, we're going to show you the end point of the exercise. Then I'm going to break it down and talk about how it's facilitated. And then we're going to put it all together. And if you wish, you can join and try the exercise out. So the end point of this exercise is, and this is the exercise that was developed by Boal, is that you will say your name and you will show the group one word and action together that represents what, in this case, our word family means to you. And this is an exercise that we would do. We called it an icebreaker. And we'll see when we get to the end of the exercise what you think about it. But it in many ways, it brought the group closer together. So we'll see what happens here. Not always, but usually. So, and then everyone after the word and action are presented, the name, the word, and the action are presented, the whole group repeats the person's name, then their word and their action. So it literally goes into their body and their voice. So we're going to show you that, and then I'm going to step back and break it down a little bit more. And Mohammed, just so you know, we have a worksheet that outlines this. We're just in the process of redesigning it. So if you could just let what I'm saying this morning and how we take you through this just wash over you, and then there will be we'll have a resource for you that you can refer to moving forward if you wanted to try this out, or Christina or Raquel for that matter, although you're involved in developing the resource, so you're probably more aware of it than I am. So I'm going to work with Daniel and Shoshana. What I'm going to do as the facilitator is I am going to step into the brave space first, and I'm going to say my name, a word and a gesture that represent family, and then Daniel and Shoshana, I'm going to ask you to repeat that back with me together. We'll take a brief pause, and then we'll do it together as a group. Is that clear for both of you? Okay. All right. Cathy. Balance.
Cathy.
Cathy.
Balance.
Balance.
Balance. Daniel, can I ask you to go next?
Daniel. Roller coaster.
Daniel.
Daniel.
Roller coaster.
coaster.
Okay. Me. Now it's my turn, right?
Shoshana. Yeah.
Shoshana. Belonging.
Shoshana.
Belonging.
Belonging. Okay. All right. So we'll step out of that for a moment. So there's one other thing when I'm going to ask you to do it, because we're sitting at cameras, and in theater, when you're working on a film set, this is called the frame. So can you might have to make your gesture. It might look a little odd if you were standing up, but you saw Shoshana did this, so we could see what she was doing. So we found that out when we rehearsed. She was really into belonging, but we couldn't see what she was doing. So that's an adaptation that we've had to make for the camera. So before I go ahead, does anybody have any questions about the actual exercise? Okay, so can you advance the slide, Shoshana, please?
I have a question. Will you be calling on our names again?
Yes, I'll explain that in a moment. So what I'm going to do now is talk about the facilitation frame that is derived from simulation, because this is very important. This is the key to this exercise. So it's not just that we went, hey, let's take an applied theater exercise and do it today. For many reasons, it is important that the facilitator works in this frame. And Mohammed, that is the resource that we will provide for you. So from a big picture perspective, the first step is that participants are welcomed and encouraged. And when we actually do the exercise, I will give you some ideas about what that sounds like. So, but that is the first step. The second step is reinforcing safety, because as we found with many of our participants, they didn't expect to walk in and with a half an hour be doing a theater exercise. And so we always gave people an out if they did not want to do this exercise for whatever reason that they didn't even have to share with us. They could not do it when we were in the face-to-face groups. Here, if you don't wish to do this exercise, you could just turn your camera off. And some people they're just not in the mood to do it, or it feels kind of scary. So we respect that. There's no right or wrong way to do this exercise. The third part of the simulation frame is the facilitation of the activity. So you saw me actually facilitating the activity. And in the circle, there's an expression that we use, which is popcorn. So people don't have to go. If you're standing beside the person and they do it, you don't have to go next. It can just go all the way around the circle. But here, because we're on Zoom, and it can get very confusing because people start talking over each other, I will pick the participants, and I usually say the way they appear on my screen. And again, if you don't feel ready to do it at that moment, you could say, can I pass and maybe do it a little bit later? And I see we have a new person that's come in. Welcome. And then the last part of the simulation frame is the debrief. And in the debrief, this is based on debriefing literature that comes from the simulation world, and particularly a model called the PEARLS model. We start with asking people what their experience was, and then we move forward to analyze it and make sense of it. The important thing is that they are able to translate what they learned in this and what we learn from each other into our practice moving forward. So now what we're going to do is we are going to step in to actually embodying this activity, and I'm going to facilitate it. So again, just before we go in, are there any questions from the people that have been here? And then Nilofar, I just want to check in with you as well. But I just wonder, are there any questions from anybody before we move forward? Okay. And Nilofar, I don't know if you want to do this exercise. Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Elaborate the reinforced safety. What does it actually, how do we implement in our classroom, reinforced safety?
Step 3, the facilitation of the activity. We're gonna, is that what you're asking?
It's reinforced safety.
I'm sorry, I'm not
reinforcing safety. He's asking what that means.
Okay,
yes.
So Mohammed, thank you. Could you let me go through the exercise, because I'm going to go into it in more depth so that you will actually see how I'm doing that.
Yeah, sure.
Please
go
and
on.
Then after we've done the exercise, I would like to come back and make sure that that concept is clear for you. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly, so thank you, Shoshana.
Cathy, may I pause for 1 minute just to say welcome to Nilofar and Balam? And I hope I'm pronouncing your names properly. I just want to welcome you and let you know that we are going through how to facilitate an applied theater exercise to help a group come together and make meaning of a central concept in how they can work and learn together. And we're going to be trying it. Cathy at this point is discussing in detail how to facilitate it. We will have a guide for you to use in your own setting, and we're just going to continue. So enjoy, and if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. I'll be watching.
And I would also invite you, if you wish, to join us in this exercise, although you don't need to. But if your camera is not on, I will not call on you. So it's entirely up to you. Okay. All right. So now we're going, I'm going to call time in, because we are actually going into the exercise.
Can I go back to the slide to show the activities, or do we need to go?
Yeah, I'd actually go back to the slide to show. No, I'm going to call it, and I'd like us to go on the gallery view, please.
Excellent. I can do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Shoshana. I'm going to lead people through it. Okay. So thank you, everyone, for coming here today to this session. And the idea of this activity, I just want to repeat it again, is that it's an opportunity for us all to make meaning of simple words that are at the core of our care. And in this case, it's the word family. And to receive that we all may have different perspectives about what this word means. There's something that I want to state. It's called the basic assumption, and it comes from the Center for Medical Simulation at Harvard. And the basic assumption states, we all start with the assumption that everyone here is intelligent, capable, and wants to learn. I also acknowledge that doing applied theater for some people might be different than anything you've ever done. So if you decide that you don't want to do this exercise for whatever reason, you are welcome to turn your camera off. And I can assure you there will be no judgment from anyone here. And the other thing is that there are no right or wrong answers. And so we'll see what comes up when we do this exercise. I am now going to demonstrate the exercise, and then I'm going to invite each of you in turn who have your camera on to do it. And even when you have your camera on, if you decide in the moment, I really don't want to do this, you have the opportunity to say pass. There's many ways to learn in this exercise. So I'm going to explain the exercise now. I'm going to say my name, and then I'm going to provide a word and a gesture that represents what family means to me. And then everyone in the group, we're going to take a slight pause, maybe look at each other on screen, and we're going to repeat back the word and the sound and the gesture together. And we're going to go around the group with everyone having an opportunity to do that. And we'll just do it one at a time. So we don't have to have a chain where we're repeating back 6 things at once. That worries people sometimes, but just once at a time and we'll move on. So now, just before I start, are there any questions or comments?
I would just love to encourage Nilofar and Balam, if you're able to turn on your screen, then we'll know that you are able to participate in the activity, only if you're able, but I just wanted to offer that once again to you. Be nice to see your face.
And I will also let some of you know that with network issues, I have been with people today who couldn't come on camera for a long time.
Oh,
Good
Balam.
morning. How are you? Hi. So if you want to come on camera, but you can't come on for the whole time, you could just raise your hand also, Nilofar, and then we would be able to call on you for a limited time, if that helps.
Or the other thing is you could put it in the chat box that you'd like to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Although we won't be able to see your gesture, but we'll be able to say your word. I realize that's not going to work, but or you could describe your gesture.
Yes, you could
We're
say
adaptable and flexible.
That's right. We'll work it out.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. So I am going to start. I'm going to do something different from the demonstration that I did. I'm going to do it right in this moment. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but what I am going to do is take a breath and let my body figure it out for me. Okay. Cathy. Precious.
Cathy, we repeat together. Precious.
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 Okay. And now, who would like, well, I'm going to go on my screen in the order of people on my screen. Christina.
Christina, community.
Christina, community.
Raquel.
Raquel, Security.
Raquel.
Raquel.
Security.
Security.
Mohammed.
Fahim. A good partner.
Fahim.
Fahim.
A good partner.
Partner.
Yeah.
Alam.
Balam.
Sorry, we cannot hear you right now.
Go ahead, we heard after.
It's Balam. Love.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay. Balam.
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 Love.
Love.
Yeah.
Shoshana.
Shoshana. Roots.
Shoshana.
Banana. Roots.
Roots. Daniel.
Wonderful. Daniel. Dependent.
Daniel. Dependent.
Dependent. And I want to add, I'm going to step into role as if I hadn't done it yet to give a slightly different perspective, which will make sense when we come into the debrief. So, Cathy, turbulent.
Cathy. Turbulent.
Turbulent. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. So now we are stepping out of the exercise and we are going into the debrief. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. So I'm wondering if I could just get your sense, and again, recognizing there is no right or wrong answer here. What was your experience? What was that like for you?
And if you have a network issue, put it in the chat and I will read it for you.
If you just want to put your hand up, then I can call on people just so we're not talking over each other. Would anybody like to share their experience?
Today's experience or past experience?
Of the exercise.
Exercise.
What was it like to do that exercise? Yes.
Yeah. It's just a wonderful exercise, and I also did it with my students in the classroom as well.
Okay.
Some part of it, as when we start, they just start imitating us, and that's how they totally try to connect with us.
So you found it's a connective. It connects.
Yeah, connective. Obviously, it's started a connective bond between the teacher and the student completely.
Okay, so that's a really great application. I'm wondering, how did you feel doing the exercise here online? How was that experience for you today?
It's kept me relaxed. I'm a bit more connected to you after this this whole group.
Nice.
And the time that different people that they're doing different thing and we are just imitating them, and this shows that how close we are.
Yeah. So it was a connective experience and brought you closer to other people. Thank you. Thank you.
Fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Would somebody else like to share? Christina.
I will admit, I started out by being really nervous about the exercise before it got started. And I have to say it's a nervousness on Zoom. And as we kind of progressed through the activity together, I experienced more, like I felt more at ease in the activity. And speaking to what was said, you know, it did foster a sense of connection, which I very much appreciated.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. I'm wondering if anyone else felt a little bit nervous or they weren't sure what was going to happen. Raquel, a little bit, yeah. Me too. I never know what's going to happen. Would anybody else like to share? And we saw Nilofar. It was very nice to see your face for a few minutes. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else want to share anything? Yes, Raquel.
I don't know if you can see, but it brought me back into my body, and like I'm leaning forward into the camera. When we started, I was back here, and already like I feel more connected or more engaged. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we've already had a suggestion about that this is a way to connect people, but I'm wondering, is there anything else that you noticed about the exercise or that you think might be able to apply to how you could apply this exercise in the work that you're doing or the groups of people that you are working with?
And we missed the opportunity to hear from Balam and
Well, yeah.
where you work. So what brought you here? I would love to hear.
Alam, would you mind starting, just letting us know a little bit more about what it is that you do and where you're from?
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir? Okay, thank you. I'm a teacher in Delhi government, sir.
What grade do you
India,
teach,
from
Balam?
India. I teach 9 to 12, 9 to 12 students. And I am a mentor teacher also, so I also facilitate teachers with a few of workshops. And I really enjoy this exercise. And for a little bit time, I did not open my camera because I was eating the food. It's a dinner time in my house. So I was just eating my food with my small kids, and they are troubling in between the session. So I did not open the camera. And I really enjoyed it, and I really connected with all of you. And this is type of exercise we also do with our students and our teachers also. It's really a nice exercise. Thanks.
Yes,
I had a
yes, it's
question,
okay.
Ken. Please, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Nilofar, did you want to share anything about your experience and where you work? Okay, so I think maybe Nilofar is disconnected or has had to, or isn't able to do that at this point. So I want to draw this conclusion to, or this section of the workshop to a close and step out of the actual workshop and just talk a little bit about how it was structured and how we did it. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the notion of safety that was brought up, and what your thoughts are about that. And I'm sorry, I thought at the beginning of the session that you said your name was Mohammed, but you used another name when we did the exercise. So I want to use your correct name.
Yeah, Muhammad Fahimuddin.
Okay, and so how would you like me to address you right now?
Fahim.
Fahim.
Fahim. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Fahim. So Fahim, what did you pick up that I used for safety there?
Actually, some students are so adorable and some are so shy. What happened in the classroom scenario? Some student they reflect themselves that they are a fighter, and they start, I am fighter. So whole class start indulging that they all are a fighter, and it's create a type of disturbance in the whole classes. And some students are so shy that they didn't want to speak, whether it is from action or from the word. So it's so for their safety concern, they don't want to speak. That if they speak something, everybody is going to imitate them. They were called by their name and their actions, making the fun of him. So this is the safety concern which I'm really looking for.
Yes.
Clarification for the Cathy. Could you please elaborate if we had some things when you introduce these things in our classroom? There is something the introductory part, so that the student maybe so too much connected to each other as well.
Okay, so just making it fun makes it safe for them then. Yeah, that sense of play about it. And I also want to say there were two things that I did, well, a few things, but one is giving them the option to opt out if they didn't feel comfortable. Number two, so that's here by turning their camera on, off or on. And number two, that basic assumption so that everybody here is intelligent and wants to do their best and learn. And then number three, that there is no right or wrong. So those three things can really create safety, plus the facilitator having a very strong structure as we went through. So those are things, and when you get the worksheet, you will see those strategies laid out as well. And I just wanted to make sure we came back and answered your question.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. I think right now that I'm going, I know there are other points, Daniel and Shoshana, that you may want to make, and that will segue nicely into the last part of the session. So I'm going to turn it over to you both.
Please go ahead, Daniel. If you have anything you want to add right now.
No, other than to just let Fahim know that I think he was asking if there was something that we could offer, some sort of a structure to help with how we set this up. And I think we're going to be looking to ask for everyone's email address if they wish to share it. We're happy to send along a scripting that we've created, a framework to follow for exactly that purpose, Fahim. So if you wish, you can even just enter your email, and that goes to all of you, Nilofar and Balam. If you want to just put your email address in, we'd be happy to email out a copy of that
Facilitation
PDF
guide.
Yeah, that facilitation guide for you to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So feel free, if you wish now, you can even add into the chat your email address, and we'll be sure to get those to you. Shoshana?
Okay, so I wanted to add that today, I really appreciated Cathy adding the word turbulence, because one of the things that this exercise can do very powerfully is help people normalize or feel normal if they feel different from what everyone else is offering. So for example, if your word was, we had a brief moment this morning in our breakout rooms where people were talking about how they didn't enjoy paper and pen testing for students. So we very quickly did paper and pen testing. And boy, oh boy, did people have fun. They were sticking their tongues out and putting their fingers on their noses and whatever else it was that they had an association with. So in that case, it was the opposite. Everything was like negative. But if there's one person who's positive and many people are negative, or one person who's negative and many people are positive, this exercise can be facilitated in a way to say everyone has different experiences, and that's when we welcome diversity of opinions. And also to say, and you can have diversity within yourself, where one day you feel one way and another day you feel another way, and that's also normal too. And especially with children, they may be confused by the fact that one day they feel one way about the same issue and another day they feel completely differently. So we can open that space for people to accept diversity within themselves and among the group. Thank you.
Shoshana,
Yes.
can I ask you guys to share a little bit? Because when we first started our workshop, it took like all morning to get people to buy into the idea that they could engage families in care. And once you introduced this exercise at the beginning of the workshop, can you tell us how things changed or?
Sure. I will tell you very briefly that even prior to being able to work with Cathy and Daniel, who you see here, we spent until approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, from 9 to 1 in the afternoon, convincing people that it really was a good idea to even start considering that maybe they could possibly work with families and still feel good and still be able to be safe in what they were doing, because they had experiences working with families in end of life care, people who were very distressed, who might yell at them or do things that came from a place of grief. And so they wanted to really step away. And by the time we introduced this exercise, it was a deep level of acceptance and validation that it wasn't so easy. And yet we're all part of families. So maybe we can start to appreciate that people who are families have strong feelings about leaving the people they love in our care. So it really melted away many barriers to doing what you talked about today, connecting, feeling connected, settling down as a group.
And if I can say that, as I call myself a civilian because my background is in the humanities, not in health sciences. The first time I went, I thought, how are these people, people that go on and do this hard work every day, going to even accept me, who knows nothing really about this? I know about it here, but I don't do this work. And I think it's something about people being in a circle and about allowing people to share where they're at, that there's no right or wrong, and people start to laugh. Fahimi, it's the fun of it. It's, even though they might not have done it before and they might be a little bit nervous, they realize this is such, like they're able to release something, but also share with one another, really equalize things. And there was a level through those safety, there wasn't a right or wrong. And a lot of them feel that they're used to being in a right or wrong environment. And we just created a space where they could just be. And you could see people just opening up. And we were astonished. And I don't know if when I was there is the first time it was done, but the level of honesty that poured out of people. And we didn't ask people to do anything other than what we did there. But it became a very transformative moment, I felt. And Shoshana, I don't know how you felt, Shoshana or Daniel, but every time it felt, it was really a very special moment.
And just
I would agree. Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
To build on what Cathy was saying, it was these incredible moments. And what I think I took away from it is this exercise is very simple. This exercise is not a very, heavy, demanding exercise that requires a lot of thought. It's simply stating your name and a word and what an action to that word means to you. It's so simple, and yet it's able to unlock on a much deeper level from a very simple exercise. And that's the beauty of it. It's not hard to incorporate very quickly at the beginning of a session to develop what you were talking about, Fahim, which is that relationship. And it's done in such a simple, innocent way, but it can really allow for a lot of deeper level learning. As Cathy was saying, you start to identify with people around who share similar thoughts and ideas or things that you can relate to and interconnect with. So now you start to develop a relationship between people. And then they start to think deeper about the differences that they hear. And that starts to develop tolerance and understanding and a desire to hear more about differing perspectives, all done in a very simple exercise. And that's the beauty of it. What we brought today was not something very complex, but the beauty is in the simplicity and yet the richness that you can start to develop without necessarily drawing attention to it out of that exercise. That's what's so beautiful and powerful about it, I think.
Wonderful. Cathy, do you give me permission to move into getting suggestions?
Go for it.
It's time. I have been waiting at the edge of my seat. Speaking of what Raquel said before, I'm very, very curious. First of all, welcome to the newcomers who just joined us. And perhaps you are in the Far East, in which case you are just finishing your dinner and your celebrations, and we welcome you. We're going to go around now and see if Balam or Fahim or some of perhaps other people who are here have a suggestion of a central word that they could use with their students, their learners, their colleagues, whatever it may be, to bring people together to make meaning of a central concept that can unlock a richer and more engaged and more relational experience in some type of education. So if we could just, please, if you have an idea of something that would work well in your setting, please offer a word. Just come off of mute.
Actually, it's okay. But if we have in our classroom, what happened? We are more than 50 to 60 students in a classroom. It's a big classroom. And doing this kind of activity took more than 2 or 3 days regularly. And the repeating of the things happen. So if we start precising this activity, already it is already precise that one have to just give him a word that I'm funny, and he start laughing. It's okay. This activity is so simple activity, is very good. But we add something more in this to communicate a group, not individual, in a group. If this activity will be done in the group, it should be so meaningful. And so meaningful for us in our scenario where we have a large number of students to cope up with.
Fahim, what do you think about adapting this exercise by using it to do a certain number of participants each day? For example, if you introduce a new unit of study on anti-bullying or respect in the classroom or whatever it may be, would it work for you to gather the students and start the day with 5 or 10 of them each day doing another word so that you could build on it as you teach about the same topic? Do you think an adaptation like that could work for you with that number of children?
Yeah, it's really work for number of students. Because if we start anti-bullying periods and we're going to give a session on for the student that we are presenting anti-bullying session for whatever it is happening all around, that we are not making the fun of other. And there's nothing, as Cathy had said, nothing right and nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Introducing ourselves. So this is good. We can use this in this kind of session. Thank you.
And I'm just thinking, Cathy and Daniel, would you agree with me that you would have to continue the framework? You wouldn't just start the next day. You have to reintroduce the welcome, the reinforcing safety, and the activity. It's just that you might limit the activity to 10 people offering their suggestions each day, right? Okay.
And there's something beautiful about the repetition each day that is a reinforcer as well, even in that. So it's very, very helpful from that point of view.
And you could, by the end of it, have a debrief that also tracked trends within how people thought of it. So perhaps the meaning would deepen for people or for students over the course of 6 or 7 school days. And they might have different words at the end than they did at the beginning as their understanding or their connection deepens to the topic, right?
Can I quickly just interject, Shoshana?
Yes, sure.
I just wanted to encourage those of you who are able to join a little later. We're so thankful to have you. We know that you're able to view this session because it's being recorded, and we wanted to offer you, there is a facilitator guide that talks through this activity. If you're interested in getting a hold of that facilitator guide, please do put your email address in the chat, and we'll make sure to send it out to you.
Could we invite anyone else? Thank you, Daniel. Could we invite anyone else who might want to offer a word that they could use in their setting? Okay, so perhaps the best thing for us to do in the time that we have is if anybody has some closing remarks. If anybody would like to make another comment and share a final thought with us. Okay, I would like to share a final thought, which is that I'm very happy to see that our theory, that this would be applicable across settings and across educational situations, is true. And I learned a great deal of those of you who are teaching directly with students in grades 9 to 12. And I'm sure I would have learned a lot more from the rest of you had you had better, easier connectivity, but I'm glad you could all join. And I thank my co-hosts, Daniel and Cathy, and everyone who attended and helped us to enrich today. And we hope that it was meaningful for you. And we look forward to helping you to access this facilitation guide if you can use it in the future. I'm going to stop the recording and then just give us another chance to make sure everyone has put their name in the chat who wants to get a copy from us.